Where I see failures in business, in particular, I talk to all of you. Many people in here have 9-figure brands. I also talk to a bunch of other brands. But I see this also in relationship models and families. The breakdown is always in communication. You know, my parents are relationship counselors. That's sort of one way to describe what they do on this commune. And everybody comes and wants to talk about sex because sex is exciting and sex is one of the things that you do generally, well, some people, when they are in an intimate relationship. But you spend 0.5% of you, if you're talking about a relationship model or a relationship dynamic, you spend like 0.5% of your time sexing and 100% of your time communicating. And your sex will be as good as your communication is. Your business will be as successful as your communication is. Communication is the underlying, your marketing will be as effective as your ability to communicate the value that you have to offer to the prospect. So two quick tips on communication. One, it is not what you say, it is what they hear. Which is why, in the business context, it's really a good idea, after you have some kind of heart-to-heart or some kind of important strategy meeting, ask the person, okay, what did you hear? Get that back. And if it is not what you intended to communicate, try again. A lot of people make communications and they fucking land right there. They don't reach the target. And then they say, well, I told them. And it's like, no, you may have said it, but you did not communicate it. Communication is taking responsibility for what that person heard. And that is a bigger game than just saying some shit that you think is cool. Now, the final thought on communication is where relationships break down, and I cannot tell you the number of leadership dynamics where you've got co-founders who fall out with one another and then the business fizzles because they could not figure out how to get along, is with what are called withheld value judgments. So you make a judgment about someone's behavior that you don't like, but you don't tell them. But you just think that thing, they're doing this. If only I could tell them the truth. But I can't because they're too much of an asshole and they'll charge me too high of an emotional price to tell them the truth. So I'm not going to actually tell them what I see because it's too painful. And then over time, all these withheld value judgments build up, and now they're over here and you're over here, and you can't communicate because there's all this bullshit in the way. So whatever you think, positive or negative, in the relationship, if you care about the relationship, if you don't care about the relationship, do not do the work. Who cares? But if you care about it, you must do the work to communicate how you feel about whatever is going on and have that be more important than progress. Because where people get confused is they think progress is the goal. Well, progress is not the goal if you have someone who's pissed off. You know, the interesting thing about democracy is it works. It's the greatest governmental model in the history of the world on a large scale. But democracy has one flaw, one small flaw, which is a disgruntled minority. And when you bring that down to a group of 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, and you have a disgruntled minority, you are fucked. One person being disgruntled or unhappy does not work in a small group. So democracy really doesn't work. Progress is not the goal. The goal is have it feel good to everybody. So do enough communication where everybody's on board with whatever the action plan is, and then move forward. And you will move forward much faster, and nobody will sabotage the action, which is generally what happens when you leave somebody behind. And people ask me, how do you have 150 employees across 4 brands and nobody's ever left? Because we do the work to communicate. It doesn't mean we don't have power dynamics and leaders bulldogging people under them, and we have all that stuff. But we're committed to communicating, and so we do well.